Hello, friend, and welcome to the U-Turn podcast. This is the absolute place for you if you are ready to create a business, a career, a personal brand, or just a life that you are so proud of. And every single week, I'll be bringing you PhDs, subject matter experts, psychology practitioners, business leaders, all onto the show to elevate your success in your work and also your life, so that you can leave a legacy, you can amplify your authority, and you can really skyrocket the amount of opportunities that you are creating for yourself in your career, whether you're in corporate or you're a business owner. My name is Ashley Stahl. I'm an international best-selling author of the book U-Turn: Get Unstuck, Discover Your Direction, and Design Your Dream Career. And most importantly, I'm the CEO of Wise Whisper Agency. I'm a top 100 TEDx speaker on the internet, and it inspired me to start Wise Whisper because my company now has a completely done-for-you process to get your signature talk written and booked on stage. In fact, we've written more than 100 TEDx talks, and we've placed more than 100 clients on stage as speakers for TEDx events. And now I'm on a mission to help every change maker that I know impact millions and share their story. So right now, I'm excited to bring you right into this week's episode. All right, U-Turn friends, today I'm bringing on someone who has quite a few accomplishments under her belt, and I want to ask her all about entrepreneurship, being successful, being innovative, ownership, actions, just so many things. Her name is Liz Elting. She's the founder and the CEO of Elizabeth Elting Foundation. She's an entrepreneur, business leader, best-selling author, linguophile. You all know I love a good language person, philanthropist, feminist, mother, most importantly. And after living, studying, and working in 5 countries all around the world, she founded TransPerfect out of an NYU dorm room in 1992. She served as co-CEO all the way until 2018. And if you don't know about it, TransPerfect is the world's largest language solutions company. They have over $1.2 billion in revenue. They have offices in more than 100 cities worldwide. She's received many awards for her business, her public service, even American Heart Association giving her an award, different women's alliances giving her. I mean, there's so many. There's too many to me to even list. And she's the best-selling author of a book called Dream Big and Win: Translating Passion into Purpose and Creating a Billion-Dollar Business. And the timing of this interview for me is so personal because I've been building my agency, building my startup. And, new level, new devil. Every different level of business, you got something new you're facing. And with it comes questioning yourself. With it comes, am I good enough? And all the things that come up. Am I really innovating? Can I sustain this? And so I'm really excited to have Liz here. Liz, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Oh, thanks so much for having me, Ashley. And that's so interesting what you said. I've never heard that expression, new level, new devil. That's very, a right on.
Yeah.
Yes, that describes it well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm so excited to have you. Any woman who's been in business for this long, especially when you popped on the Zoom screen, you're so enjoyable just the first minute having you. And I find that just your energy felt really warm and comforting. But I know that for you to build a company with $1.2 billion in revenue, you've got to be able to make some hard decisions. You've got to be able to put on some really hard party pants to handle some situations. And I freaking really struggle with that myself, Liz. And I think a lot of people struggle with that. They struggle to like themselves and have the hardness that sometimes the firmness that comes with leadership. And I feel like there's a lot of wordsmiths out there that will be like, it's not that you're being hard or abrasive, it's that you're being firm. Like there's a lot of wordsmithing around the unpleasantries of leadership. And so I just want to call the spade that sometimes you got to be hard and difficult and strong and firm and boundaried. And so I want to start right there. I want to jump in, and I know I can backpedal and ask you all about how you built the company, but I want to start with, how do you hold all the energy it takes to hold of having employees, their growth, the money they want to make, their output, their production, what they're doing, the clients, the customers, are they happy with what you're giving them? The unhappy customer. How do you deal with yourself, like how to go to bed at night with all that stuff? So I want to get straight into the hard side of things, which is like just holding all of this emotionally. What has been your way out of those heavy emotional dynamics with humans?
Oh, wow. Wow, what a
Going
question.
in.
That's awesome. Yeah, you're right in there. I mean, it's interesting when you just, you name all those things. Yes, you you do need to concern yourself with all those things, but I mean, we all in life need to deal with a lot of different things, whether it's our family, our friends, our jobs, or juggling it all. And then of course, it's the same thing as an entrepreneur. But you do it. And I found as far as making the hard decisions, often it wasn't that hard because sometimes I didn't have a choice, right? Like if, for example, if we weren't delivering for a client, that wasn't the right thing. We needed to fix it. We needed to address the issue. And if it was an employee, we needed to address the issue. If the employee wasn't delivering results, we needed to address it. And a lot of it is simply because we didn't have a choice. I mean, you need to, obviously, you can't let the client down. Obviously, you need the money to pay the bills. So often that drove what happened. And I think it's mostly about doing it in a firm but kind way. So you do what you have to do, but you do it with kindness. You don't attack the person and give them bad personal feedback, but just say, this is the situation and it doesn't work. And, so we have to change this situation that, whether it's related to the results or the predicament you're in, and don't make it personal. Because, and then I think it can be done. And yes, you do need to make lots of tough decisions. Um, I found that even at the end of my time, after
Yeah.
26 years at my own company, I was kind of guided by my values. In the end, you need to be true to your values. You need to know what they are. And, if things aren't going the way you believe in your heart they should go, then you need to not worry about what's easiest, not worry about what everyone thinks, and just do the
What's
right
right?
thing in your
Yeah.
heart.
Okay, so that's the thing I get stuck on, Liz. So I'm going straight in with you because I just can feel a seasoned businesswoman beyond your bio. I'm like, I feel you. So I'm going to these questions with you because if I need them, everybody needs them. So my agency, Wise Whisper, we've helped craft and book more than 100 TEDx talks for clients, and we have 60 on deck right now. And we do keynotes, we do book ghostwriting, we do pitching people for stages. It's like a lot of really awesome services. And this week we booked 12 people on stage for all sorts of different keynotes, a few of them TEDx for sure. And it was a lot of activity, right? A lot going on. And one particular customer comes to mind. We commit to helping them craft the talk, which they're all really pleased with, but then we help them getting booked. One of the people, she got booked, and it wasn't like we did it for her, but we helped her. And she ended up landing a talk overseas. And she started to get anxiety about it being overseas. And we could feel that feeling you feel when you have a customer that you gave them what you committed to give them. Maybe it didn't look exactly like what it needed to. Like, so for example, a TEDx talk. To me, the TEDx talk goes on YouTube, whether it's overseas, whether it's in Atlanta, whether it's wherever it's doing it. That's what we committed to helping her get. She got it. And now she's having a lot of language like, oh, I don't know if that's what we kind of agreed to. Da, da, da. The paperwork is pretty clear. Like we help you get booked. You did it. Point being, there's so many moments in business where we give people what we say we're going to do, but they have a feeling about it. They feel a type of way about it. And what you were sharing is kind of feedback to check in with yourself, but there's also that thinking that the customer is always right. So on my end, Liz, it's like, well, shoot, if she didn't want the one overseas because she just didn't consider that we might book her overseas, even though the paperwork says and the conversation said it was possible, should we eat the money we just lost putting 100 hours of people on this project? Or do we just force her to take it and say, this is what we said we were going to give you? So
Yeah.
I'm bringing you into this
Yeah.
because I feel
Super
like there's
interesting.
nuance, right? It's like we
Yeah.
did what we said we are going to do, but she's unhappy. And sometimes that happens too, right? And
Yeah.
you got to tune into what's the right thing to do. And it's like, well, we said we
That's really interesting. So I'm just curious about that now. So
yeah.
the TED Talk, she was envisioning, where was she envisioning she would do it? Like in her, like anywhere in the US or in her hometown, or like where was she thinking it would be?
I think she thought it would probably be in the US. Obviously,
Just anywhere.
we tell clients we help them, get placed, but
Yeah,
that we start from their local area with them and then we go outward from there. And so sometimes it goes really far out if they're not getting placed closer to them.
yeah.
What's interesting about this particular case is that this is a first time event
Okay.
and that gave her anxiety. She hasn't seen it, but we had heard that the people running that event have run 6 events before. So we felt really good about it. We usually don't put people on first time events.
Yeah.
So the point of me saying all this is it's not what she thought, she doesn't see all this event history online. She's panicking, but I've talked to the people and they seem awesome. Like we gave her what we said, we put the time in. So this brings me to this question with you of like this nuance where we didn't really wrong the customer. We did what we said we were going to do. It's a tough customer. And
Yeah.
I think a lot of people relate to this because I think a lot of coaches, especially, they do the sessions and maybe the customer doesn't do their homework. They don't show up for with presently for the work, right? Or there's a lot of subjectivity in business, right? Like, how do we help people with that subjective luminal space of like the client's not happy, but we didn't really do them wrong? Because I know it's easier for you to give me content on what do you do when you're wrong and the customer's right?
Right,
What do we
right.
do when you're right and the customer's right? And you're,
So, but in your written agreement, you're saying it could be done from wherever
yeah,
you book it. Yeah,
yeah,
and you just didn't read the fine print
yeah.
carefully, right? Yeah, no, I mean, I know you want to, I mean, that's an excellent question. You just eat the cost and start all over.
When you think about businesses growing their sales beyond forecasts, you probably think about a product with very high demand, a very focused brand, and influence driven marketing. But an often overlooked secret is actually the businesses behind the business making selling simple. For millions of businesses, that business is Shopify. Shopify is home to the #1 checkout on the planet, meaning way less carts going abandoned and way more sales going. So if you're growing your business, your commerce platform better be ready to sell wherever your customers are scrolling or strolling on the web, in your store, in their feed, and everywhere in between. Upgrade your business and get the same checkout brands like Mattel and Heinz use. Sign up for your $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/U-turn, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/U-turn to upgrade your selling today. Again, that's shopify.com/U-turn.
With her, or do you say, no, this is what we agreed to, it's in the contract, and we need you to pay us for this, right? That's the, but you think you can convince her, like talk to her about, first of all, do you cover the costs of getting to the location?
No,
Okay, so
no.
is it partly the expense that she's concerned about?
I don't think she's concerned about that because we're a pretty high-end service. And so
Yeah,
she invested in this wanting
yeah,
the help that we give. But I think
yeah.
she feels I think she's an anxious customer. And this really brings us into customers in general is there's some customers, I mean, when you're in your purpose, you have those good moments where I have 5 customers sending me crying voice messages like they can't believe they get to give this talk we help them book and help them
Wow.
write. But then there's other ones where they're just anxious and nothing is ever enough. Um,
It sounds like that is the case with this client, perhaps, and no matter what you do, maybe she won't be happy. I mean, I guess I was going to say maybe you can convince her about what a wonderful opportunity it is, and that she should take it, do it, and it will be all over YouTube anyway, so she'll get the exposure. And the whole concept of the best things are the ones that we're a little fearful of. Yes, we acknowledge our fear, and then we go and do it anyway. And then they're the biggest adventures of our life. They're the best stories we can tell about our life. I mean, I don't know if you feel like you can convince her of that, but it would be nice if you could talk to her and tell her it's actually a wonderful opportunity, and more interesting and exciting than it could have been if it were just a domestic opportunity.
so that's what I'm hearing your tip is for everybody is like in that space where maybe the customer isn't right, but they're not wrong. Maybe she's right to feel like that, the event doesn't have online history. This doesn't
Yeah.
feel legit to her. I know it's legit. I know what we're putting out. Um, maybe the answer is just talking to the customer. I've learned myself one of the lowest forms of of influence is like convincing, like pushing. So there's such a fine line of having a conversation, like standing in what you
Yeah.
know versus pushing somebody and convincing somebody. But
Yeah.
I love this tip because I think there's a lot of people listening where you're right and your customer can feel how they feel. It's valid. And you don't want to make concessions in your business and hurt your bottom line. You know, you did the work, you showed up. So how do you do that? So let's talk about, for example, oh, go ahead, please. Tell me you
No,
have.
no, no. I mean, I'm just saying, I agree. You don't want to make it seem like you're saying that just because it's self-serving, because you want to
Right.
get paid, but more that, I mean, and I could just say how I would genuinely feel, because as you know, when you're selling, the best way to sell is something you truly believe in. I would say, wow, I mean, I'm sorry that you didn't realize that that was what, the agreement was. But I really truly feel, client, that this is a wonderful opportunity. I'd be excited to go to this place. It's a
Yeah.
chance to go see somewhere new, the adventure of it all, the story to tell. And because I would truly feel that way. And maybe
Yeah.
you would too. And if you're just talking to her like a friend and letting her know, you can, I mean, and that it's not just because you want to get paid, but you truly feel that way. But
Yeah.
back to what you were going to.
I love you saying that. And I think this kind of goes back to customer service. And I know it's so funny. I just felt so present to this to dive in with you because if you've built as big of a company as you have, you've dealt with a lot of customer service issues. You just have. Like people are peopling, and a lot of people need help with wherever they're at in their journey, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. They're not showing up as their best self to service providers. Like that's just cat's out of the bag. Like, so I'm also kind of taking a look at the coach who maybe they did all 5 sessions of their package. And on the 5th session, the customer's like, I don't really get what I wanted out of this. I want a refund. And the coach, they did the work. I think this happens all the time. And it's not because the coach themselves is the problem. So it's one of those things where it's like we fulfilled on what we said. The customer subjectively decided it's not good enough. I love what you shared, having a conversation, maybe
Yeah.
making some sort of concession to make it right, but not hurting your bottom line too much. It's just been really fun to talk to you about that. Um, Go ahead, please.
Yeah, related to that, that's interesting because, yeah, I mean, if you put in all these hours, you really deserve to be paid for it, and you should be. One thing I found that we would do if we made some kind of mistake, but it was subjective. It was like in your case, it wasn't a mistake. It's her subjective call, which according to the agreement, you did the right thing. Then we would say, okay, we need to charge you for it because we put in all the hours and it's a wonderful opportunity. We want you to do this because we think it opens up all these other opportunities for you, but we can give you a credit for a future this or that, just kind of, as you say, making some sort of concession. Or I guess another way is only charging her, I don't know, 3/4. Like, I mean, there are ways to do it, right? Whether it's the credit, you pay for it plus the credit for future work, or a certain percentage she pays, just to feel like you're giving what you can, but you put in all the work. That could be another approach. Yes.
Yeah, I love that. I feel like it's just fun to kind of think about not when you're wrong, because when you're wrong, you got to make it right. And I feel like that's
Yes.
just a matter of communication, right? But when you're kind of right, and they're maybe right too, because they feel how they feel and it's subjective, I think we live in such a gray world where customers get to decide if something was valuable for them, even if you're excellent. And I mean, if I'm a straight shooter with you, Liz, we've had 55 customers the past 12 months, and I would say 50 of them are thrilled with us. And then 5 of them, probably 3 of them think we're not good writing. Maybe 2 of them think that we have bad operations, because we didn't get back to them. I don't know. We're all doing our best, and we live in a world where there's not a lot of space for humans. I think of last week, I had a new person starting. They sent the wrong email to the wrong person. The customer was really upset. I want to give this human being grace. So I want to talk not just about customer service issues, but managing people and giving people space to grow, giving people space to learn. And a lot of the times that comes at the cost of an organization for you as a leader. Like John Doe, who's on day 1, is not going to be good as Sally on day 35 or day 300. So how do you navigate your mindset and your grace with new talent, choosing talent? Like, what are some of the thoughts that you had in building your business around this?
Yeah, no, and you're right. Yeah. I mean, everything you're saying, I totally can understand. To the extent when the new people are there, and you can have someone check their work before it goes out, just to, prevent problems before they happen, because they're new, and who knows, maybe they're bad at spelling last names or company names, and you identify that during that time, or they're, whatever, they're not detail oriented, and you can really address that, nip that in the bud. Because I remember, even with detail, things like that, which, as you know, it's all about the details. You can't get those things wrong, or repeatedly you can't. We had some people who, in the early days, I remember we would look at their work before it went out, find all these mistakes, tell
Oh,
them, fix them, and you would think someone like that can never be changed, but no, they were able to change by getting that feedback and just being a lot more careful. So to the extent you can have a second eye on their work and kind of standing over them just for the early days, whether it's a week or a month, I don't know. Now, I know that is not so easy, but to the extent you can inspect their work in the early days and then address it, so it'll prevent those mistakes going forward. That's one thing you can do. But another, I'm trying to think beyond that, because I know some things you've just got to let them run with, and they will make a mistake or two. And as long as you apologize to the client, and let them know, I'm sorry, this is this person's first week, and, this is what we're doing, and address it immediately, and let them know what you're going to do or what you've done, so it won't happen again. But no, I understand. Great question. And this is precisely why, yes, it's all about finding great people, and then they, letting them know what's important. Okay, urgency is important to us. Detail orientation is important to us. We got to spell company names right. We got to spell people's names right. But there will be mistakes, and then it's just a case of explaining and apologizing to the client and letting them know what you'll do so it won't happen again. And but it's a great question, because it's hard when people are new.
yeah, you can't control everybody. Like, you can only do your best, and there's only so many hours in a day, and you don't want to give up your mission or what you're building because you can't control every single thing. And
Yeah.
yet we live in a world that people expect excellence and perfection. And I think that's why so many humans' mental health isn't good, and we have so much collective anxiety, is because we're all putting pressure on businesses and the people inside of them, right? Like, to
Right.
be perfect. Okay, so you've had such a fun career, Liz, and I think one of the things that um, is most interesting about what your team shared with me is your belief that entrepreneurs don't need to create something brand new to be innovative or to be successful. And I love that, because I think so many people listening are racking their brain, like, how do I create something different? And they don't really understand how to, like, really step into that. So what can you share a little bit more about that?
Yes, and that is such an important point to me, because I remember in business school, I remember people would take these entrepreneurship classes, and then we'd meet Thursday nights from 4 to 8. We always had this beer blast, it was called. It was a happy hour for 4 hours, and they would come and they said, I just came from my entrepreneurship class, and I need to think of a new product or service. What can I do? And I thought, glad I'm not taking that class. So, because it's hard. So I think the point is more, as you said, you do not need to invent something new to be wildly successful. Instead, it's about seeing what's out there and thinking, okay, how can it be done better? And in my case, I worked at another translation company, absolutely loved the industry, but saw things that I thought could be done differently and better. And it was everything from, if a client needed a project, rather than telling them it would take a week to translate and they needed it faster, I would tell them it could be done in 2 days. So faster, urgency. Same with giving them the quote, not taking a day or two when they needed it in 15 or 20 minutes, but 15 or 20 minutes. Another is quality, making sure the quality is great. Now, we just talked about quality. Mistakes will happen, but if by chance you make a mistake, apologize profusely, fix it, and don't charge them. And I mean, like, objective mistakes. So I knew that had to be done better. Another thing that had to be done better is any kind of deliverable, not just giving certain kinds of deliverables or working in certain kind of projects, but being amenable to the types of things they would need. And then another thing was innovating. So these are, constant innovation. These are some things that I believed in being done differently. But I like to mention Steve Jobs. The iPhone he wasn't the one to invent a smartphone. There were other smartphones out there before him, but he did it, Apple did it differently and better. And obviously that's a great example. And so it's about looking at what's out there and figuring out how can I do it differently and better. And often it starts with wowing the client with service, but then it kind of ends with innovation and cutting edge technology. But
Mm,
last thing on the technology should not replace the human, because I think our biggest differentiator is always the personalized service, particularly now with tech. People
mm.
want that personalized service, and that is a huge differentiator.
Mm. Okay, so I love this idea of like seeing something done wrong and seeing how you could do it better, or seeing something that has a gap, seeing how you could do it better. I think that everyday life, we walk around and we see things that could just be so much better. How do you decide which thing you really want to pursue? Like, how do you work with yourself to get clarity? Because even though you have your one business that you really grew, I mean, you have many pursuits that you've done, but you have this one that you've really grown. I'm sure throughout the years you had to pick a new service to roll out or a new da 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 to do, and it's just this constant decision making of this, and they're like new micro businesses under your business, right? So how do you choose?
Well, yes, and absolutely. The reason I started my company is I mentioned I was at the other translation company, loved it, loved the industry, but thought it could be done better. And I thought of the ways it could be done better. But then within the company, we did need to constantly innovate to differentiate ourselves from the competition. And a lot of how we did that was if you have employees, talking to your clients and saying, asking them my favorite question, which was, what would you do differently if you owned the company? What would you change about how we do things internally? What service would you offer the client that we're not offering? What technology would you offer the client, or product would you offer the client? So I found that to be very beneficial. And that's how we came up with a lot of our products and services. Um, you know, I'm trying to think of other things, and then asking the client. Sometimes a client will suggest what they need that they're not getting from you and they're not getting from your competitors. And that's a great way to fine tune what you're doing, or change what you're doing, or add a new product or service. So being in constant contact both with your employees about it, getting their ideas, and your clients. So I think that's all very important. And then watching for trends in the industry, or in the world. I mean, obviously with AI, there are new businesses and ideas we have that we didn't know about years ago. Or with the book I wrote. The reason I wrote my book is I couldn't find another book quite like it, because it was my story, but it was a how-to, and I wanted to make it very how-to based on the things I did right and the things I did wrong, but also personal and vulnerable and authentic. And I couldn't find one quite like it, certainly when I was building my company and even now. So doing another book on entrepreneurship, but doing it differently.
Mm, okay. So you've brought so many years of experience and thinking like this into Dream Big and Win. Why this book? Why right now? What is it about your inspiration that brought you here?
Yeah. And as I said, I wrote the book because it's the book I wished I'd had when I was starting my company and growing my company. So that's why the book tried to do it, in a way that I thought could be helpful. And I think now it's more important than ever,
Mm,
because certainly I think entrepreneurship is, I mean, it's a great equalizer. I feel like anybody can start a company. And if you do the right things and you don't quit and you take the risks, and if you make a mistake, you just say, okay, won't do that anymore, and you move on, you can build a $1 billion company. So I'm a big believer in entrepreneurship, because I believe entrepreneurship is social power and social power is political power. And this is how we change the world and make the world a better place. I also believe in it because if you work hard for a period of time and you give it everything you have, then you can later on live your dream life. I like to say, work today like no one else will, so you can live and give tomorrow like no one else can. But at the same time, I believe in doing it related to something you love and are good at. And so often people are stuck in jobs where they either don't like the industry, but they did it because it was practical, or they don't like the company, they don't like the people, they don't like the culture. So this is people's chance to create what they love. And sure, it's hard work, but you're going to work working at someone else's company, so you may as well
Do what you want to do.
build your dream rather than theirs.
Okay, so I don't know if this is asking you to be too honest. So but one thing I'm curious about is like you're saying that, right, Liz? Like I want to build what I want to build, but there's got to be times while you're building your thing where you just want to throw it away in the trash
Oh,
bin,
yeah.
and you want to just
Oh,
just
yeah.
far, far away with like a catapult. So can you
Yes.
take me into like what were those moments for you where like it really felt like nothing was working, and you wanted to quit, and what was it that got you out of that?
Yeah. And in 26 years, that happened quite a few times. Yes, 26 years is a long time to do it. And there were times in the early days where I was so burnt out, where we almost didn't make payroll. At the last minute, we figured out, but the hours were incredible. And then sometimes I would just step back. I would take a walk or, leave the office for a few hours if I could. And if not, I timed it when I could and just think, okay, we're going to keep doing the right things and we're going to get the right people on board and we're going to make sure we motivate them to help us build this dream. And then, if we work like this for a period of time, we're going to have this wonderful freedom and ability to do what we want later on. But there were times when I was going to pull my hair out and for all different reasons. It's stressful, of course, running your own company. Absolutely. But you also have a kind of control you don't when you're at someone else's company. So I guess, that's what I'd say. It's worth it. It's worth it. And, because if you don't do it, if you never tried, then that's a risk, right? You might always wonder, what if I had?
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
very rewarding.
I'm guessing the early years of building your company were so different than the later years. Like what the
Yes,
company
so
needs is
different.
happening is so different than later. What were some
So
of the key things you did at the beginning that you think really set it up for success that you would want any new entrepreneur to really be thinking about?
Okay. Well, I feel like a lot of entrepreneurs now focus on funding. How do I get funding? It's always about funding. And I say funding is vanity, profitable revenue is sanity, meaning don't put the hours into creating that beautiful PowerPoint, that perfect deck that then you're going to be finding people who you can send it to who could potentially invest in your company. And of course, most of them don't. And then if by chance they do, then the pressure is on you to deliver and sell, and instead put those hours into selling to your clients. And that's how we did it. And we focused on revenue from day one, hardcore sales. In my case, it was making, hundreds of phone calls a day, sending out hundreds of letters. That was a long time ago. Now people wouldn't do the mass mailing with the letters. In the phone calls, I probably not, but emails now, LinkedIn messages now, social media can be used, obviously very cost effectively, but intense sales activity and then networking, and building your revenue. And then making it so you develop a world-class sales team as quickly as possible so they can continue to build the revenue and the sales. Because obviously, if you don't have the sales, you run out of money and the company goes out of business. So doing that early on and incentivizing these people like owners. Um, so I think those are some of the things I recommend people do. Oh, I mean, another thing I always say, because I did it wrong, was when I started, I was young and broke and in love with my boyfriend who I started my company with.
Wow.
And because we had no money and we're just starting the company, we did it without an attorney, without an accountant, and we didn't have the proper paperwork. And we ended up starting as 50-50 owners without a shareholders agreement. You
Mm,
can't do that. If you
mm,
have any business partners, you need a proper shareholders agreement. And this is super important to define roles, responsibilities, decision making, dispute resolution, what happens in the event of death, disability, divorce, and a buy sell provision. This was a big deal for us because we were romantically involved. Then we broke up and we still didn't have this agreement. And I couldn't get him to sign one the whole 26 years. So, but the problem is we were 50-50 owners and there was no clear decision maker. You can't do that if you have a partner or partners. That doesn't work. So you need to make sure you do that properly. Um, I mean, there are a lot of other things. I would focus on selling and then wowing the client with quality and service so they keep coming back and they refer others. I would make sure you do charge enough so you're not just spinning your wheels, value what you're doing. In our case, we needed to make sure we had a minimum charge, or we would have, never gotten to the next level, with all the different levels. And of course, hiring great people. And good people are hard to find, so you really want to make sure you spend the proper time finding the people and looking for the right qualities and sharing your values, and make sure their values are similar, and then make sure they are smart, motivated overachievers who want to build the company that you want to build, and then incentivize them properly and create a culture, make yourself an
Yeah.
employer of choice. So those are some of the things.
Yeah, I feel like it's the bigger, my team a year ago was just me and two people, and now it's 25 of us. And
Wow.
so it's been
Congratulations.
thanks. It's interesting, Liz, because in one way I'm so successful at this. Like I feel like the work we're putting out is beautiful and breathtaking speeches. Books, our chief ghostwriter, he helped write Conversations with God. I mean, it's just potent work going out, but on the other hand, I don't feel successful at all. I feel like I'm grinding. I feel like I'm hustling. And it's not that I'm not hustling for leads. People are coming and finding us, right?
Wow.
I'm not
That's
hustling
amazing.
for sales. I mean, you got to work on your marketing and your numbers and da 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 da. But I feel like my real hustle is in productizing things. Like people come in, they're like, "Hey, I want a book written for me. How does that look?" And it's like, "Oh gosh, like I'm a duck. I gotta outline how we're gonna do that. It's a new
Yeah.
service, but we can do it, right?" My hustle comes in my team, right? Like they forget something, I pick it up and do it because it's faster for me to do it. Um, and sometimes you just want to kind of like, and you caught me on a tougher day because with 12 people getting booked this week, it's like the demand of people on me is higher.
Yeah.
People want a lot. And I guess I'm trying to figure out like, how have you worked with yourself to feel successful? Because I feel like we live in a world that it's always more, more, more. And I'm noticing myself, I'm like, wow, what a success. We built this multiple seven-figure company in 12 months with a huge team that I'm super proud of. But I literally on the weekends, like, and most weeks I'm loving it. But there's some weekends where I'm like, I just got to lay on the couch and like stare at the ceiling, So
Well,
how
good. You deserve to.
yeah. Yeah, but
You
I wish I
deserve the
wasn't in a spot of like I feel dead inside versus like
best.
you know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
depleted.
no, and I know what you mean, because I felt burnt out in the early days, because you're in that tough time
Yeah.
where you're growing, growing, growing. It's the growing pains, because you're getting this business, but you're the common denominator and all. You're needed for so much of it. And so, well, I guess it's about, outlining what you want to accomplish each day and each week, and then being intense during those hours. So coming up with a plan, you can do it either at the beginning of the week, but also the night before when you shut down for the day. And you should make yourself shut down, if as long as you feel you can, because otherwise you are going to burn out. And shut down and just come up with a plan on what you want to accomplish the next day, and then walk away from your business and your emails and your phone and all of that, and have the time with your family or your friends or your kids or whatever it is. Okay, but so that's one thing. And then be intense during the day and accomplish what you need to. But also, it does seem like you need to have like standardize,
Yeah.
what do we do if someone comes to us for a book? Okay, what's our process? And then once you do that, it becomes so much easier. You're in these early days, like the first year or so, or
Yeah.
if you're approaching your second year, where you don't have a standard proposal for this and for that and for this, and you just
Yeah.
need this is so it will get
Exactly.
better. It'll get so much better after you have those finalized, and then you just have a template you use for each thing. It gets so much better, and then you can really move ahead without as many crazy hours. And then, of course, make sure you delegate the stuff that's delegatable, that
Yeah.
you're not, that's more clerical, more repetitive. Make sure you do delegate that. But yeah, you're in a tough time, but just stay with it, because you're doing so
Oh,
well,
thank
and you should
you.
be so proud of yourself,
I'm
because
not gonna give up,
hardest
but
part is over.
definitely,
No,
yeah.
I always say
Hardest
the
part is
first
over.
million is by far the toughest. It's harder to get from 0 to $1 million in revenue, and I don't know exactly what your revenue is, than to get from 1 million to 600 million. Like because of all the things we're saying. And
Yeah, like the startup stuff. It's so
startup
hard.
stuff, right? Yeah, like creating the templates, making sure you have people who are trained and who think like owners and act like owners. And, you're just in those early days where you're not there yet, but the longer you're doing it and you have all these things in place and you have the right people in place, then it'll get so much easier and the hours will become much more manageable too.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's training too. Like we have a new
Right.
salesperson, and like every time I turn around, it's like a customer wants something new and I need to explain it because that's what she needs. And that's actually one thing I see with a lot of leaders is I used to have a coaching practice for 12 years.
Mm.
And I would see a lot of leaders, there was a bit of ego where sometimes they would be irritated, people would ask them questions, and I would have to kind of like help them see that. Like if you're hiring people to help you and they have a question, it's your job to answer their question and be happy to answer their question for them to do what you ask them to do. So
Absolutely.
sometimes leaders are drive-by delegating, and I try not to do that. And I think that's why the burnout is kicking in, is because I want to answer every question. I want to get this right. I want to be excellent. Um, and yeah, I think that
Well,
you're
yeah, but also you should answer the questions, but they should also have to, solve their own problems too. Like you give them the info they need, but if you're having to do every little thing, then there's no point having them. So, you hire smart problem solvers, you give them the info that you would have that they may not, or the training that you need to that they don't know, but then let them take it to the finish line. And in the early days, yeah, it'll take longer than it would take you, but it's worth it because they're learning, they're doing, they're growing. And then over time, they'll do it as fast as you, and you will over time find people who are, maybe you already have, but like so talented. I mean, had an easy time hiring people who were smarter than me over time. Like in the
yeah.
early days, I was the one who knew about the industry and knew what we needed, but later you hire people who impress you, and
Wow.
and they can get things done that you maybe couldn't, or faster or better,
Yeah. Yeah,
yeah,
one thing about this podcast that I've always appreciated is I just show up so honest on it because I
yeah.
know that if I'm having a hard day, somebody listening is, like we're just all one. How
And
do you,
we've all been through the things you're describing, and it gets better. It truly does, but you have to stay with it during the tough times to get to the other side. Yeah.
yes, it's so true. And I know that you talk in your book. And by the way, we have you for at 11:45. Can I keep you till noon or do you have a hard
Oh,
stop?
sure,
Okay.
sure.
Okay, cool. I'll ask you more then. I was just reading about how you talk about ownership and what a core value that is for you, whether you're an entrepreneur, whether you're an employee, like what does it really mean to have ownership? And I love that I'm asking you this because we started with how do I take ownership with a tough customer when
Yeah,
I'm on the wrong, right? That's an ownership thing. Um,
yeah,
and there's so much nuance to ownership. It's not always black and white of
you're
just
right.
own it. You take responsibility. Sometimes people are over responsible. Sometimes people are under responsible. So tell me a little bit about what that really means to you and how people can bring that into their world.
Wow. Well, as far as an owner, acting like an owner, yeah, you want to hire people who act like owners. And I think it starts with integrity, right? You want someone who's honest, if they see, and I talk about this in the book, if they see someone stealing money out of the cash register, they're going to act the way you would act. They're not going to be like, oh, okay, well, can you put it back? Okay, see you tomorrow. No, they're going to care like it's their money. So, I asked that cash register question that I talk about in the book, but you want to hire people who treat the company like it's their own, like the money is their own, like not to steal, but to look after, to protect. And then the quality is there, the service is there, the clients are, their family. Like you want to teach them all this, and the way you do it is you incentivize them that way. So you pay them in a way, the way you're paid, where if they're delivering results and in sales, it's obviously revenue and profit, they make more than they would elsewhere. And if they're not delivering, they make less and eventually they leave. And then as far as on the non-sales side, you give them milestones that you would give yourself and you teach them to do it, but you incentivize them the way you're incentivized. And you also share with them what the ultimate goal is. In our case, it was to become the world's largest company in our industry. You may have a goal like that, or you may want to be the largest in one particular area, or you may want to be a pioneer in one particular area. But you share that with them, and then you incentivize them to help make that happen. And part of it is incentivizing them to innovate, to
Mm,
give you ideas for what would they do differently if they owned the company,
mm,
or how would they innovate if they owned the company, and then reward them for it, let them own it, maybe open up that division um, that does that. So I think the key is just letting them know what the goal is, and then letting them know you differentiate yourself with quality and service, and then letting them run with it,
mm.
and provide that quality and service, and then of course the revenues, profit, and growth come. But I mean, I'm speaking in a general way, but that's true. You just treat them like owners, and I
Yeah.
think every good employee acts like an owner.
I
And
love that so
and tell
much.
them you don't want them to be yes people. Tell them, what could we do better? Tell me what we could do better. What could we do differently? How could we innovate more? You really want that. Yeah.
I love that so much. And I feel like my team, I'm so grateful for them. Like they're just such brilliant beings, truly. I feel like people say that. It's like a nice soundbite. I have a great team. I have a really good team.
Yeah.
And I don't think I could really do most of what we're doing without their brains. Truly. I just can't do this on my own. I can't. And I think one thing that customers, especially in the early days, don't always like is not working with you, right? Like, and so I would love your take here on ownership because there have been a couple circumstances where I'll be out at an event. People are like, you should talk to Ashley. Her company's awesome. They got me booked for this, that, and the other thing, whatever. The person will come over and I'll take the Zoom because it's a friend of a friend. Like, I'm happy to take it. And I'm not going to manage their projects. Like, I'm running many other things for the company.
Of course.
And there have been two clients. So again, this is like probably out of like 20 referrals we've gotten that they said that they felt handed off or like bait and switched, that they talked to me, even though in the call I said, okay, Megan's your point of contact. Megan runs projects. This person's going to be on your project. So is that just self work I need to do? And everybody listening, when they start to delegate, like, okay, fine, not everybody's going to be happy I'm not the face. But to be honest with you, Liz, I think the people running the thing are better than me. I just gave them somebody better.
Well, yeah, and that's, I mean, and I think the problem you have is a very common problem for owners, right? Everyone wants them, but yeah, people think the company is them, but the more you have people in your company going after the business, did you say wait, do you have salespeople? I'm sorry, did you
Yeah,
say?
yeah, yeah,
Okay,
we do.
yeah. So if they're going after the business, if they're doing the networking and the emailing and the messaging, then they should be the people that people want to deal with, as opposed to you. Yes, you founded the company and you own the company, but you're the company. You could never be a sizable company if you were the person. So I think they need to be the ones out there at the events and at the meetings and connecting. And then what will happen is the client will think of them, not you. I mean, believe me, we did this. I think we did this early on. Our goal was to build a world-class sales organization, the largest sales organization in the industry at a company in our industry. And that paid off because even though the clients knew I was the owner and I was the founder and the press was usually about me, I wasn't who they were dealing with every day. And
Right.
and it was much better that way. And believe me, they wouldn't have been happy dealing with me. The people who were dealing with them were better. But I think it's just having salespeople that are the initial contact with the client, then the client thinks of them as the company as much as you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And even then, I think people sometimes feel handed off. Like I met a woman at an event and she's like, I would love to talk to you about doing my thing. I'm like, great. This is the person's calendar link. Like hop on her calendar.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, I don't get to talk to you. Um, and so it is a navigation, but I think you're right that whoever they touch base with first is who they associate as their point of contact. And that's really, really valuable for people to consider.
Yeah. And they'll understand as you continue to grow and they're talking to other people at your company, but I understand the issue. I mean, you can talk about, oh, well, this person is the talent. I mean, not that you know what I mean? Because it became pretty clear, like for us, in our case, we turned it over to the production team and we were not production and we weren't the talent. And to the extent you can do that, that you
Yeah.
are more, you're strategizing and you're running it, but the talent is a different group.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Liz, what have I not asked you about dreaming big and winning that we want everybody to know? I know you talk a lot about actions over manifestations, which I love.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
what should I ask you before we go that I forgot to ask or haven't?
No, you've asked wonderful questions. I love your questions. I'm trying to think of something else that could be helpful to the group. I think the important thing is don't wait for the perfect idea. Well, I mean, you need an idea, but often it's doing what's already been being done and doing it better and differently. And don't wait for the perfect time because it's never, there's always something getting in the way. But if you have this desire and you have this idea and you have a passion, take the risk, go for it, because you'll always wonder, as I said before, if you didn't, you took a risk not going for it, and you then can create the company of your dreams, the culture of your dreams, and you can really make a difference in this world and a difference in your own life. And I say go for it. And then think big. Don't think it just needs to be a few people because it's a lifestyle business. What people often find is sometimes these lifestyle businesses become just like another job and they can be even harder and more intense because they are the person. So think big, think scaling it, dreaming big and then working on the business rather than in the business. So you can scale it, you can dream big, and then you can win. And not that it's not a win if you're not the absolute biggest, but make it whatever you want to be. Think big. Don't limit it to just yourself and don't be afraid to take the risk. The time is now.
Yeah, this has been so awesome. I'm taking notes as you're talking.
Oh,
Thank you for your heart. Thank you for your hard work. Thanks for reminding everybody listening. You got to just work hard, stick through it. Sometimes you don't enjoy it. For holding the vulnerability with me. And where can everybody find you, learn from you, and grab your book?
Thank you. Well, I'm on all 5 platforms. So, social media, not basically the 5 I mean are LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter or X, Threads, and Facebook, and Amazon. It's on Amazon, and the hardcover, the paperback's coming out in March. The Audible version is on there, and then also in retail stores as well, like Barnes and Noble and others. And then also I have a website, lizelting.com, and my foundation has a website, elizabetheltingfoundation.com. But the book Dream Big and Win is online.
Beautiful. Thanks so much, Liz.
Thanks so much to you, Ashley. I loved our conversation.
Me too.
Thanks.
Thanks for tuning in to the U-Turn podcast. I hope you learned so much in this episode and you're putting it into action today. We would love to hear from you. Slide into my DMs at Ashley Stahl or leave a written review if you're inspired. It would mean so much to us. Be sure to subscribe to the show because, as you know, the more subscribers we get, the better the guests we can bring you. And in the meantime, if you're looking to skyrocket your personal brand and impact millions, head on over to wisewhisperagency.com to learn more about how we are getting clients booked for the TEDx stage.